Where we left off in part 2, Madeleine and Enzo had said their I do's after a very rocky road that led them to marriage, dating each other while they were both married, Madeleine paying Enzo's wife thousands of dollars in order to get her to grant Enzo a divorce, and ultimately Enzo breaking one of Madeleine's arms after she pulled his hair in an attempt to force him to stay with her after he threatened to leave the relationship. Then, at the doctor's hospital on November 27, 1933, while Madeleine, still lying in a hospital bed with a broken arm, they got married. Romantic, right? In case you haven't already seen parts 1 and 2, you probably will enjoy this story more after doing so. The links to those videos are in the description box. But for now, let's get back to this saga. First, if you like these videos about the most scandalous people from yesteryear who make Ty's Hot Mess History a time capsule for the culture, subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you can know every time that I upload one of these videos or every time that I live stream, and hit that like button to support this video. Thank you. Now, on to why you are here. Madeleine and Enzo had drummed up enough headlines just from their time openly dating while both were still married to other people. More headlines followed after the wedding, with reporters questioning why she left her quiet and successful husband to marry a broke boxer. Madeleine's stepson, Vincent Astor, tried to use his political connections on more than one occasion to keep Enzo away from her. In addition to not permitting him on the island of Bermuda when he met there to meet Madeleine before they got married, Vincent also pulled a stunt to prevent Enzo from re-entering the United States by phoning a friend of his, President Roosevelt. Yeah, I told you in part 2 that Vincent was the one with the real power and money. Unlike the Titanic baby, John Jacob, who couldn't pull any power moves like his half-brother. But instead, it seems that he took the route of acting out, almost like a cry for attention when he announced his engagement to a debutante just 1 week after his mother married the boxer. He never made it down the aisle with her, but just 6 months later, he got married to another Manhattan girl who fit the bill because she was also from a prominent family. Her name was Ellen Tuck French, and she was a cousin to the Vanderbilts. His mother showed up for his wedding, but his new penniless pugilist stepfather did not. But it seems like after this point, the atmosphere became a little more calm for the couple. For a few months, they were only being talked about in newspapers for being on vacation. Here they are almost 2 months exactly after the wedding on vacation in Palm Beach. Here they are a couple of weeks after that in Lake Worth, which is just about 10 miles away from Palm Beach, so likely on the same vacation. And about 2 weeks after that, not a photo of the couple, but of the home that Madeleine was paying to rent for their extended vacation. A mansion called Nuestro Paradiso, which means our paradise in Spanish. It had a private beach in the rear. And if ever a couple needed privacy, it was that pair. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't comment on the title of this blurb. Our paradise is Fiermonte Dick home. That's what we've been saying about Madeleine this whole time. We all knew her motive, to have Fiermonte's dick at home. And about another 2 weeks after that, on February 25th, the couple appears in another paper, this time on Madeleine's new boat, which is simply called Fun. That is ironic. Most of their marriage was not smooth sailing and was far from anything that people would call fun. And surely enough, exactly 4 months later on June 25th, there are signs of trouble in paradise, or at least the paradise that they were pretending existed between the two of them. An article titled, "Enzo Parts But Fails to Kiss the Missus" told its readers a few things. 1, clearly from the title, he left but didn't kiss his wife goodbye. Not a big deal if he was going to the store to grab some milk, but he was going to be gone from their West Hampton Beach vacation home for at least a week. He had told a friend where he was going and said that he wasn't sure when he would come back. His reason for going? Business conferences. Now, he had 5 pieces of luggage and owned 0 businesses, but okay. 2. He had announced the Friday before this article was published that he was retiring from boxing, which was something that Madeleine desperately wanted him to do. 3. Less than a week later, he was talking about getting back into the ring to fight. When questioned about whether getting back to boxing would upset his new bride, he said, quote, "I don't care if she is worth $5 million or $10 million. I'm boss in my house." End quote. 4. Neighbors had reported that they saw Enzo yelling at his butler to get rid of photographers days before this story was published. Allegedly, he said, "Get that mob out of here or I'll catch hell." And yes, the neighbors were watching the newlyweds. Then, 2 months later, on August 21st, well, there's no story here, but they say that a picture says 1,000 words. The young, and I do stress young, lady in the photo with him is an actress named Toby Wing. The caption says that he was getting acting advice from her. Maybe he was. All that I'm going to say is, in all of the photos that I have gone through of him and Madeleine to research for this series, I have not seen one of him smiling at Madeleine like he is smiling at this young lady. And maybe he should have hurried up and applied whatever advice the young actress gave him to get an acting gig, because his next appearance in the news was the following month, on September 30th, getting his ass knocked out in a boxing match. Then, 2 months after that, the next piece of bad press was for Mrs. Piedramonte. She, along with Elliot Roosevelt, lost their Blue Book status. The Blue Book was merely a social register of the who's who in New York City. It let everybody know that you were a New Yorker with money and class. For Elliot, the second son of President Roosevelt, he took it pretty nonchalantly. He knew that his name was dropped from the register simply because he had moved from New York 2 years prior to them removing his name. But as for Madeleine, she was dropped from the register because of her marriage to Enzo. And this was society's way of telling her that you are a New Yorker with money, but class? Not so much. That was November of 1934, and really the last article that I see about either of them worth mentioning for that year. 1934 definitely ended on a bad note for the Union. But you know what they say, new year, new you. And the first January story that I found about them from 1935 showed that things were looking optimistic for these two insufferable donkeys. It's the Daily News, January 31st, and Madeleine is back to her old, creepy, foolish self in full swing. The article is called "Overlook SOS, We're in Love, Enzo's Latest." Here's the story that was reported. Enzo was headed back to Europe on an Italian liner called the SS Roma. He was leaving for Europe without his old wife. Not only did he leave without Madeleine, but another woman saw him off. As he was getting ready to board the ship, goodbyes were exchanged between him and a woman named Mrs. Adela Rogers St. John's. Now, I'm not saying that she was having an affair with Enzo, but I'm not saying that she wasn't. I will simply say that she looked like this, as opposed to how his wife looked. And shortly after her dealings with Enzo, her husband wanted a divorce from her. So, while Enzo was saying his goodbyes to Adela, and she's standing on the pier, waiting until the ship leaves with her friend on it, little does he know that his crazy old wife is already on the ship. Yes, while he was saying "see ya later" to his friend, Adela, his wife slipped right past him and got on the ship. Madeleine intentionally did not register her name on the passenger list because she wanted to surprise her hubby. And apparently she did just that. The story doesn't give details on exactly how it happened, but at some point after Enzo realized that his wife was on the ship, he was excited to see her. My guess is that he knew that she would give him some more allowance money to spend on his European vacation that he clearly had no intention of her being a part of before. Nevertheless, he sent a radiogram to one of his friends expressing his happiness due to the discovery of Madeleine on his ship. It read, quote, "Wife's aboard, God help me. In spite of previous statements in the press, I am glad to say that Mrs. Fiermonte and I are reconciliated," end quote. Yes, he said reconciliated, not reconciled. The next day, February 1st, newspapers would print why Enzo had a change of heart. See, he got on the SS Roma to sneak away from Madeleine, but while they were on the ship, she wrote a series of love letters and apology letters to him, having a ship steward carry them to his room eventually, like after a few days at sea. But while she was in her cabin writing love letters, Enzo was running his mouth all over the ship, bragging about how he had escaped from his wife. I'll tell you exactly what he said to fellow passengers at the bar and the gymnasium instructor on board about his elation at getting away from his wife's creepy old lady grip when we discuss the article from February the 1st in part 4 of this hot mess that is the Fiermontes. Enzo Fiermonte isn't the first person to get involved in a love triangle, and he won't be the last. Duke Ellington could have related to Enzo, but the Duke paid the price with a permanent scar on his face. I published a video about that story that you can see here. I will also leave a link to it in the description box. This video has been brought to you by me. Well, my Patreon is a sponsor for this video. If you like these dirty scandals on my channel, then you'll love my Patreon, Ty's Too Hot Mess History. It has all of the stuff that I can't talk about or show here because it's just too hot, too violent, too sexual, too graphic, too much. Come and join us there for the hot mess history. The link is in the description box.